Hey everybody, it's the baseball fight, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host on, and good afternoon everybody. Yes, good afternoon everybody. Welcome back. This is a Christopher Mad Dog Russo video. I can do a video on Mad Dog Russo's rant on the New York Mets on Friday. On his Sirius XM radio show. I didn't know that was still around. Now, I would mention, I am a big fan of Mike and the Mad Dog. Big fan of Christopher Russo. But I would say this. There is no big Met hater in the history WFAN than Christopher Russo. He'd been complaining about the Mets for 35 years. Really longer than that. 37 years, since 1988, complaining about them all these years. And I would point out, as you know, he is a Giants fan, a San Francisco Giants fan. And he and his partner, former partner, had a show where they did nothing but just rip into the Mets every single day. 2005, the Mets lost opening day. And they came on the air and basically belittled the audience. Said the Mets are going to lose 90 games. They're going to be a terrible team. And it really upset not only the Mets themselves, but also upset the fans that listened to their program. Now, these are two guys and that did not get along with each other. It's pretty, well established. They hate each other still to this day. But they made a lot of money for WFAN. But they set the standard there, the hatred for the New York Mets. And really, Russo's really the beginning of it, more than Francesa. Francesa was more coming from a Yankees fan perspective. And he was very close with Omar Minai, the Mets' former general manager from the LOS, the Los Mets era. So they were very close. But Russo has always had this bug up his ass when it comes to the Mets. Now, he is a guy that has been in the industry for a long time. It's 50 years. He said this. He went on a rant, folks, on his program on Friday for 18 minutes. There were segments, of it, but for 18 minutes, it didn't affect him, he said. It didn't affect him when he was ranting. But he's gonna talk about it. It's like somebody gets on your nerves. It's like, and you say to yourself, and you say to your friends, "I don't want to talk about that person. Let me go talk about them for the next hour." I gotta stop. I can't. Well, this is how this was on Friday, and I listened to the 18 minutes. It was going on and on and on, but it didn't bother him. It didn't bother him. So let me get to awful announcing. Chris Russo goes off on Mets for denying Colin Russo's interview request. I will never root for them. I'll never root for them, Mikey. He never rooted for them. Okay? Their PR always does this nonsense. Now, he doesn't work for the MLB Network anymore because the MLB Network fired him. They fired him and they fired his partner, Rizzo, Alana Rizzo, because the program was terrible. He was never on, and the fans, the MLB fans were tortured by Alana Rizzo, okay? And he was fired, okay? He was fired from his regular show. He makes a couple appearances to talk about how much he knows about baseball history with that unctuous Brian Kenny. But he was fired, let's be honest. It was very quietly done because he's been at the network for a long time, but he was fired. Sports talk host Chris Russo has, of course, had plenty to say about the nepotism in the NBA regarding Bronny James' position on the LA Lakers alongside his father, LeBron James. That's included discussions of how involved LeBron was in Bronny getting his roster spot. But ironically, Russo has been quite involved in his own son, Colin Russo's media career as well. Colin Russo, who cohorts The Russo and Rizzo show on ESPN West Palm Beach alongside Michael Rizzo, the son of Cleveland sports radio legend Tony Rizzo. I wouldn't know Tony Rizzo if I fell on him. Recently hosted one of their shows from Clover Park, the site of the New York Mets spring training facility, ahead of one of their spring training games. Now, back in the day, Don Imus used to call them Fats on Fruit Loops. And the Fruit Loops is kind of double meaning. Probably for good reason. But we won't get into that. For this special show, Russo attempted to contact the Mets organization to see if they could have access to a player on their roster for an interview. Fortunately, Russo and Rizzo had their request denied, with the Mets organization claiming that every player's schedules were full for the rest of the day. Okay, that's fine. Colin Russo never publicly discussed it, but Chris Russo, who is of course known to was his opinion free and openly regardless of any consequences, had no trouble using his platform on his Sirius XM radio, Mad Dog Unleashed, to blast the Mets organization on his son's behalf. Quote, "Oh, go to hell! Their schedules are full for the rest of the day. You're talking to me, who's been at spring training sites for 50 years, said Russo on Friday's edition of Mad Dog Unleashed, which was later reposted by Funhouse on X. Don't give me any nonsense that you can't figure out a way to get Paul Blackburn on or the backup infielder. Nobody's asked for Lonzo, Lindor, or Soto. We get it. Nobody's asked for Shomania or Jeff McNeil, who's hurt, by the way. We get it. I understand there might be a language issue. What the hell is he talking? I didn't know what the hell he's talking about. I think Shomania and Jeff McNeil, all the players he's mentioned here, they all speak English. But you mean to tell me the New York Mets, and I could care less? It doesn't affect my show, but it affects him as a father. I sound like LeBron, but I have got to say this because it drives me crazy. He's already nuts. To be fair, they went to the Nationals the other day. They gave them Rizzo, the freaking president of the team, a Hall of Famer for... He's not a Hall of Famer. Mike Rizzo did a good job in Washington. He's not a Hall of Famer. I don't know what the hell he was talking about when he said that. The Nationals gave them Rizzo 15 minutes. I mean, God almighty. And the Mets sit here today, and this is the reason I will never root for them. I just can't stand them. The PR always does this nonsense. I would mention he's not a Mets fan. He's a Giants fan. There's this famous rant where he's complaining about the Giants losing one year, and he complained about the Mets beating the Giants back in 2000. Quote, the Mets are the Mets. See, this is where this started, folks. This is where this started. This nonsense. The Mets are going to Mets. LOL Mets. The Mets are the Mets. They're not the Boston Celtics. They're not the Green Bay Packers. With Vince Lombardi. They're the freaking Mets. Let me give you the most obscure guy I can come up with. You mean to tell me that Jose Buto can't come up for 5 minutes? I would mention, I don't think Buto speaks English. And he's not the most friendliest person. They had the Fan Fest last month, over a month and a half ago at Citi Field. He was the most unapproachable player. Didn't want to be there. So that's the last guy. Now he says this. You mean to tell me Taylor? He called him Taylor McGill. Taylor McGill can't come on. He might be in Syracuse to start the year. He goes on and on and on. How about AJ Minter? You can't tell AJ. Hey, do me a favor. We've got a radio show from West Palm Beach with two little kids. He said two little kids during this rant. You can say it here. It's baseball. They're doing me a favor by being here to celebrate the sport. They're here for 2 hours. You can't do 5 minutes with them. And baseball wonders why ESPN said adios. Nah, that's not what happened. Baseball left because they weren't being promoted. This rant from Russo would go on for 18 minutes, spread across multiple segments throughout Friday's show. But you can clearly get the gist right away of just how upset Russo is with the Mets organization. Now, he went on and on. He even said, because he mentioned that this was a staffer that told these guys that they couldn't get any players on. He said that this guy, who's probably a guy that maybe just got the job. Mets probably just hired him as part of the PR department. That he should be fired. This is how insane this was. But it didn't bother him. It doesn't affect him, no. But this complaining, this pissing and moaning, will hurt his son, because either teams will either give into this insanity or tell Russo and his kid, do like everybody else, pound sand. I would tell him pound sand. Mets won't do that, but that's what I would tell him. I'd call him up and say, you know what? And I'd send hire Francesa, pound sand, and tell him to pound sand. That's what I tell him. And I would mention he no longer works at MLB Network, so he's not kissing the Mets' ass now. So you see in the real venom, the real hatred he has for the Mets. Because he knows, like everybody else does, the New York Mets are America's team. Everybody cares what the Mets do, including him, and he knows it. Okay? Everybody sees a little bit of themselves in the Mets. And he was going on, really, folks, he was going on about how he was, you talk about sacrificial. He was saying he's making all these great sacrifices. I paid for everybody to go down to Florida. He's going on and on. His crew, and then his crew, one of the guys in the warm-up said, yeah, you're right. Am I not right, Eddie? It's going on and on. What's funny about this, and again, like I said, WFAN, this is where this started, okay? The insanity and the stupidity of this. No team is under any obligation to have any of their players go on any show or podcast. And we're getting late into spring training now, okay? This is late spring training. This is not in late February, early March. We're getting to the end, okay? In a week, and the season's already started for the Dodgers and the Cubs. The season starts next Thursday in 8 days. Going on a podcast or any kind of radio program can be understandable this late in the game. And again, I can't even do, this is very much an insane asylum report, to be honest with you. But it doesn't bother me, though. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. But it bothers them. Well, you let me know what you think about this video. And, of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut. And I'll see you later.